Hello, welcome again to the workshop of Wood Spun Round. This is Doug. I am so glad to have you with me today. A few weeks back, I was in a antique shop, a thrift shop kind of a place, and was just looking around to see what I saw. And lo and behold, there is this pepper mill. Um, it was obvious it had been not well taken care of over the years. I'm not sure how old this is. It's been around a little while. And I could tell that by the feel of the finish. The feel is it just feels like grease, where it's been sitting on the kitchen counter or maybe on the stove and it's not been cleaned well or properly. As I looked at it, I realized that the price was ridiculously cheap. And so I picked it up and I paid for it. And my wife said, "What in the world are you going to do with that?" Well, a couple of things. You see the big bead at the top and the bead at the bottom. Um, the joint between from those beads to the body had been done with a parting tool, and they were just flat. And so what I'm doing right here is I'm working my way down, trying to take that curve all the way to the bottom. You see I'm using a skew. Right there I'm actually trying to start a V groove. And what I'm finding out is that this pepper mill was not even turned. Somehow it's not square. The holes are not drilled square in the pepper mill. And so I'm going to start with this skew, this 1-inch skew, and I just freshly honed it so it's sharp as it can be. But it just didn't want to cut into that wood, and it was catching. And so right here what I've done is switched over to my 1/2-inch bowl gouge. This is my tool of choice, the one I grab just instinctively, beyond any other tool I've got in the rack. And I'm just rounding over this bead and fixing I had actually two catches, but another thing that I figured out was that some of my catches, especially in this upper bead, are being caused by something that they had used to fill a chip out. This is a burl, and so it had chipped out, and they used something red, not only in this top bead, but all the way down the body as well. Some little hairline cracks that were in there. Don't know what it was that they used, but whatever it was, it chipped out when I put the gouge to it. Since this wood is very hard and it's not running true, I worked for quite a while trying to get it true and could not get it true. So here trying to see what tool that is. That's my detail gouge. I've switched over. It's a 3/8 detail gouge from Doug Thompson, and I'm using it to get to the very bottom of this joint here between bead and body, making it very sharp instead of being flat. You can see at the base it's still flat. You can see the shine down in there. At the top, that is pretty well gone. A little later, I will go back with my skew and just use the very tip of my skew, using it as a scraper, laying on its side. I'll get right down in the very bottom and make that just as sharp as I possibly can. But here I have scraped through the finish and all the grease that was on there. I'm getting just a little bit of curve on that area going back into the body. So you can see the difference between the raw wood and the greasy part. I've wiped it down with some cleaner, so it's a little better than it was originally, but it's not much better. Again, using my detail gouge, I'm just working that leading edge going into the base, into that joint between the body and the base bead. Here I'm on the bead coming up toward the body. But again, that detail gouge, it's quite sharp and has a sharp point, so it goes down in those small areas very, very well. But I will come back later with the skew and get the actual very bottom. Come back with the 1/2-inch bowl gouge. Again, just using it as a shear scrape here. Closed right down and just getting those two surfaces nice and fair. I'm not going to worry about truing up the entire pepper mill. Um, this pepper mill was turned with somebody else's love, and I want to respect that. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit. Um, who knows? This may have been this person's first project. Then again, maybe it wasn't. Maybe that was just the best they were able to do, and I congratulate them for doing it. It's a beautiful piece of wood, and it was the wood that I bought it for, not for the great turning, or bad turning for that matter. I'm not trying to prove anything other than you can take something that's old and you can refresh it. You've seen here what the color is. You're going to see at the end what it becomes. Excuse me. Just using this detail gouge to work the top of the bottom bead, and this bottom. It's kind of a rounded V cut going into this joint here. Back to my skew, just using it as a scraper, laying on its side. Just coming from deeper in the curve of the bead, coming into that joint between the two, getting the bead all the way down to raw wood, as close to raw wood as I can. And sandpaper is going to finish it out. So, like I said, just ferrying out this curve a little bit, getting it a little smoother than what it was. It was quite jumpy in there. I probably should point out while I'm doing this, and you're seeing what I'm doing, in the chuck I've got an old tenon that I cut off of another piece, and had a cone on it already. So that's what I've got stuck into the bottom. Into the top there's just a piece I was going to use as a soft touch, but I drilled it too large, and so I couldn't thread it. So it's just sitting over the end of my live center. It does have a curved end. It's going into the top of that pepper mill, up into the top of the body there. I showed you there I'm using 60 grit sandpaper. I actually started with 100 grit, and it was just too fine. It wasn't cutting through that gunk, whatever that is. So I got 60 grit, and it cut through quite well. Had to blow that stuff out. It was clogging the sandpaper pretty quickly. But you can see it is a very burly burl. Lots of eyes, lots of swirling grain. It's going to be quite pretty. Right there I'm pointing out where that filler chipped out. I'm debating what to do. So I go to my tried and true, as I typically do. I'm getting my tub of coffee grounds there. Those are very finely ground coffee grounds. We didn't like this coffee, and so it became filler for me. Some thin CA glue. Put a little bit into the chip out there. Pinch of coffee grounds. I'll press them in just a little bit. Coffee grounds, there's something in the coffee that is a bit of a natural accelerator, and so I didn't have to use much there. I did put some more CA, some more coffee grounds, got it overfilled. I've come back to my sandpaper here and just sanding that area smooth again. I think that's 100 grit that I've got in my hand. I believe that's what I saw there. I've sanded all the way to 320. I've blown it out good, and now I'm using, this is alcohol on a piece of paper towel. So you can see how beautiful that burl is now that all the grease and grime is off of there. The alcohol is just to get what little bit of sawdust is still in the grain out. I've blown it really good, but there's still sawdust on there. I'll show you here in just a second. In fact, there you go. You can see how brown that is. That's sawdust and gunk that is just down in that wood. A little sanding sealer. You're about to see the beauty come out of this. You're getting little glimpse, a little more. Now you can see it. How beautiful is that? So grateful that we have materials like burls that we can use to see how much beauty there is in this world. A little bit of Axe abrasive paste here. I want to take it down. I've sanded to 320, but I want to get it real fine. I want the natural beauty of this burl to come out. So Axe abrasive paste, and I'm just wiping it on here, getting a good even coverage. Started out at about 2 or 250 just to get it spread really well and to start working that in. Then as I start feeling it break down, I speed it up. We've done all of that. My towel has come away clean, and now we're back to the Axe polishing and restoring paste. This is a wax. It's a carnauba based wax. So I'm going to put that on, and again I'm going to slow the lathe down to about 200 when I turn it back on, just to spread this wax out real nice and even, and make sure it's worked into the wood very, very well. You can already see a nice shine there. That's just the wet wax on there. Making sure I'm down in those grooves real well on the top, all the way around the bead. Again, going to start at 200 here in just a moment before we turn it up. And I want to start at 200 to make sure it's completely, completely covered very evenly. And I also want to give that wax time to go off just a little bit. This is a very soft wax, and so it takes just a minute for it to be ready to buff. There we go. Starting out very slow. Get that bottom bead, get the body. I'll come all the way up, top bead, top V, and then the top bead as well. Finishing up the buffing process. I don't know, that's probably about 1500 RPMs there. I think it's right about now I decided to put a second coat on. So it's basically second verse, same as the first. Apply it, spread it out real well. I'll turn the lathe on slowly, make sure I got a good even coverage, give it time to go off just a little bit, and then we'll crank it up to about 1400 or so and buff it off. If you're interested in the Axe products, you have to order Axe online through their website. So it's axewoodpaste.com. In fact, I think if you do a Google search on Axe wood paste, I think it'll come up for you real quick. This is an American-made product, made in Pennsylvania. Tom and Annette Ackersley are the makers. They make it there in their home. So it's a small business, small product, but it works tremendously well. There are some folks around who have a discount code. Feel free to go over to their websites and use their access codes or their discount codes. They won't mind a bit. I don't mind you doing it. Well, it looks good, and it's not even buffed yet. That's just the wet wax. Reverse it. Going to turn it up just a little bit. I did the last coat spinning toward me, so this coat I'm going to buff it up, going the opposite direction. And look how that shine it's. I take the wet out of it, which was causing the waviness, and it just sharpens those light reflections up. A little bit of vibration you're seeing there is because it is off-center, just a hair. I never did straighten it up completely, so that's fine. But you see how beautiful the shine is. I'm going to take it off very gently, let that fully cure. And we're going to go work on the top of this pepper mill. I've used that same piece of wood in my headstock. Just made a little point to go through the metal base. And then use my cone center. You see there, I'm starting with 60 grit. I'm going to work my way up to 320. Started with that 60 grit, got all that yuck off of there, and then worked my way down to 320. So we'd have the same type of very smooth surface. Get it nice and clean. We'll do the same thing we did with the other one. We'll blow it good. We'll put on some denatured alcohol to clean it. Here I am blowing it. I don't think I'll show you the alcohol on the top. Just making sure it's all nice and clean. That's where I thought I went back to the 320. There's a place or two I just wanted to hit real good. Seems like there might have been a little surface crack. Anyway, cleaned it up good. Now we're back to the sanding sealer. Let that dry nicely. Normally we would knock that back with a high grit sandpaper or even one of the nylon pads. But in this case we're using the abrasive paste, so not a whole lot of need to do that. There wasn't much there. Again, Axe abrasive paste is what I'm using. It'll take it up to about 1,000 grit, so I'll get a really nice finish from that. Applying it, there's no rush on this. It doesn't really dry at all. I'll work it. I want the abrasive paste to work, so we'll start at a low speed, 250, somewhere in that neighborhood, and just rubbing it in, allowing the abrasive paste to work, and it breaks down. The faster you go, the more times you change that paper towel, the cleaner it will become. As the grip breaks down and you're wiping or cleaning all of that the carrier off, which is beeswax and mineral oil. We've done all of that. Now we're going back to the polishing restoring paste. And this is wax. It's carnauba wax mixed with some beeswax and some mineral oil. The beeswax and mineral oil work as carriers for the carnauba wax. Since carnauba is so hard, if it was pure carnauba, it would be a solid mass. You couldn't hardly use it. So we've gotten it all buffed up. We're going to start reassembling here. Put the rod back in. I'm not going to show you much of this. Most of you know how to do a pepper mill, but that's not the point of this video anyway. The point is I found this old gummy pepper mill, bought it for next to nothing, was able to clean it up, renew it, and now it's ready to go back, whether it's in my current sales display or maybe it's in the new one that I might put it in the new one that I'm going to have another part of the state. But there you see it. I'll be able to sell that for a pretty nice, pretty penny. It's a beautiful piece of wood. It's a nice pepper mill. We'll probably stick a few peppercorns in it. There are the steel shots. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. Until we are able to meet again, I hope you're able to spin them round. This is Doug at Wood Spun Round.